Hello, welcome to iFanboy Mediasplode episode 59, Old Men and Old Movies, Rad, from 1986. My name is Conor Kilpatrick, and I'm here with Josh Flanagan.
Hey there.
And Ron Richards.
I'm living proof that dreams do come true.
And
you too can podcast for 20 years and strong arm your friends into making them watch your favorite movie and talk about it.
I want the people at home to know we know no one wants this.
No,
it's some do, but it is statistically insignificant.
There are at least two people that want this.
As I said, but the vast majority.
I bet you will be surprised the number of people in the listening audience, maybe in the Discord, maybe amongst the patrons, who will appreciate this.
We've had a lot of you're watching what?
Yeah.
And
it's
why?
Just every once in a while you go, you know what? This is our show. We'll do the show. Right. And not think about what other people want. And this is apparently one of those times.
This is an American classic. It deserves to be in Criterion. It deserves to be in AFI. It always gets overlooked. It always gets overlooked.
All right.
So we'll get to it. So
we'll get to it. And just to tease, we got a special guest who's going to join us for the conversation. So
he's the other person that wanted this.
Yes, exactly. There are two people who are excited for this conversation, myself and the special guest, and we're going to enjoy the hell out of it. But before we do that, Connor has some stuff to read.
So what is this show? This is our monthly show unlocked by the patrons at patreon.com/ifanboy who wanted to hear us talk about non-comic book media. We talk about comic book media on our regular podcast over at ifanboy.com. You can check those out, or youtube.com/ifanboy. But this is our non-comics media show. And we will have there'll be rad spoilers. There's just going to be.
Listen, the movie came out 30 years ago. I'm sorry. 40 years ago.
Are the spoilers going to be rad?
There'll be rad spoilers about rad, yeah.
39 years? No.
86. Came out
86 is 39.
39 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, is it?
No.
Which means it was shot.
39 years ago. Correct. Josh is correct. Josh, I was testing you. Good
Tough
job.
math.
Good job.
That hurt.
You did it.
That hurt somewhere deep in my heart. Or that it's a
1986, by the way.
Okay.
Greatest year of my life.
Good year for
still the greatest year of my life. So, and I include rad as one of the reasons, the bullet point. We'll get to that though. So.
We told our special guest we'd be quick, and we haven't even started the show.
Yeah, well, he's going to get here and be like, "Oh, we did most of it."
So
Ron did.
We're going to start the show as we always do with talking about what we've been enjoying since we last spoke. And I'll start with I have to see a couple movies, but one of the ones I went to see was F1, the movie, which came out a couple weeks ago, directed by Joseph Kosinski. Written by Aaron Kruger and Joseph Kosinski. This is the team behind Top Gun Maverick, mostly, because there was a Christopher McQuarrie rewrite of Top Gun Maverick, which was something this movie sorely needed. Brad Pitt, 2.5-hour commercial for the F1 race series. This is an Apple film, so it's going to be available on Apple TV Plus soon enough. But I had a lot of fun. Did you see it in IMAX? No, I didn't see it in IMAX.
Okay,
but I saw it on a big screen.
Is that the running time or the aspect ratio? Real quick.
So, I don't know anything about F1. I mean, I know it's a car race. I don't know, but the details of it. I've never seen an F1 race before, but I know it's gained a lot of popularity, especially in the United States, ever since Drive to Survive, the Netflix series, came out. And this is essentially just another commercial for the race. Hamilton's one of the producers on this. He's Lewis Hamilton's one of the producers in the movie. It's fun. It's not a great movie, but it was a lot of fun. And if you don't know anything about F1, you'll know a lot about F1 when you come out of it. So I think partially what it wanted to do was educate people more about it if you didn't know anything about it. And I thought it was cool. I mean, it's not you can probably predict almost all the beats, except I didn't predict the very, very end beat, which I was happy about because I'm always happy when I don't know what's going to happen. But
I decided I wanted to go see this in the theater because I really like race car movies.
Yeah, race car movies.
And I thought, oh, that'll be great. And then it was starting to be like, I don't know when I'm going to do it. And then I looked, I was like, well, how long is it? And it was like 2:35. I was like, yeah, we're not going to make it. Like based solely on running time.
I'm telling you, running time is a selling point now. It's a big deal. It's I same thing, Josh. I would like to see this. I consider myself a Brad Pitt fan. I like the guy who did. I like Joe Kosinski. I think good director. Enjoyed Top Gun Maverick. I've heard good. You guys know I'm not a big IMAX fan, but I've heard like this is a big theatrical, see it on the biggest screen they kind of experience.
The camera in the car, and so
they put the camera in the car.
Like, well, there's one almost an entire lap from the.
It's like Jaws. It's half in and half out of the car.
Right. Got it.
So if you, I mean, it's there's some incredible action directing.
Yeah,
he's a very good action director.
I would like. I'm planning on going to see this. I just, and also it's the timing. Like I don't know when it came out. Like right the week before 4th of July, right? So it's just timing.
And that's why I didn't go see it at an AMC, because I didn't want the extra 30 minutes and have it be a 3-hour experience. I went to the smaller theater that's brutal. Only a couple of trailers, but you can probably guess the story. Brad Pitt is an old F1 driver who's coming back from disgrace to help his friends failing F1 team. They got to just win one race. Just one race on the circuit.
Aaron Edgerton is a young man who thinks he can be an F1 driver, but nobody thinks he can do it.
Well, they already have a driver, and he's talented, but he is not disciplined. But
I remember that was also Cars and all of them.
Look, the best racing movie I've seen was Rush, the Ron Howard, also F1 movie starring Chris
Ford
Hemsworth.
Versus Ferrari.
Ford versus Ferrari was great, but Rush I thought was a better movie.
Yes, I love Rush.
Ford versus Ferrari was that? I feel like that was
about Le Mans.
Yeah, it was about Le Mans, but it was less about the racing and more about the racer. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
they're all about the racer at the end.
But it still came down to the race, with Ferrari at the end.
Yeah. Racing movies are incredibly exciting, and I've been to a couple of NASCAR races because a long time ago I worked for a company that worked for NASCAR, and in person they're incredibly exciting. They're less exciting on television. They don't seem.
They're just all turning left.
But this movie has a lot about tactics and how you can win a race but not be the fastest. Like, it was actually really interesting from that point of view, but it's also really fun. Brad Pitt is Brad Pitt. There's several scenes of him walking slowly onto the track, and you're just like, he's a movie star. Like he is just a movie star, and
he's good. You
get a good sense of it's not just a racer in a car; it's 1,000 people on the team, behind the scenes making this thing work. And it's worth seeing on a big screen. If you don't see it till Apple TV, that's fine too. But it's not great. The biggest flaw in it is that the dialogue is not that great. And that's probably the thing that stood out to me the most, is that a lot of it's really sort of thudding. They're going for snappy fun, but they're not what they're getting.
I would like to see it on the big screen. I don't know why. For some reason, I'm just like,
because that's the kind of thing that would make a difference. It's big, the sound, the whatever.
I was gripping my seat when, like, in the race scenes, because it's so intense on a big screen.
Did anyone throw up?
No one threw up. The guy next to me checked his phone every 25 minutes, but other than that,
God Almighty,
I was going to throw him up. But worth seeing for sure. If you like Brad Pitt, if you like racing, if you like big
every 25 minutes. So let's see.
And technically speaking, it is an original film. Yes, it is. There's a brand involved, but it is not a remake. It is not a cartoon. It is not a book. It is an original story.
Product placement story. I don't care.
All right,
like it's one thing. Like racing is one of the most blatantly commercial sports. Like they were the first ones to be like, what if we put logos on everything, and
which is kind of brilliant,
and liquor.
In terms of the movie, they can now have sponsors. They can offset the cost of the film.
Listen, all I know is that I watched the trailer and I really wanted to do my expenses on Expensify.com. I don't know why.
I know, it's weird.
It was weird.
The danger of these movies is you definitely in danger of getting a speeding ticket on the way home. I remember distinctly coming home from Rush and driving way too fast.
Well,
but that's just me. All right, let's move on to Josh.
I haven't watched a lot, so Ron wanted to do this first, but I'm
glad. We were talking about behind the scenes. We planned what we're going to talk about, and I mentioned that I had watched this. And Josh, you tell people what it is.
So Pee Wee himself was this.
Pee Wee as himself.
Pee Wee Herman. Yeah, I know I get it wrong every time. Pee Wee Herman or Paul Rubens. And it occurs to me very early, like, we don't know a thing about this guy, at all, really. But he subjected himself to a documentary being made by HBO, and the filmmaker was telling his story, but also doing these interview segments where Pee Wee, I'm going to call him Pee Wee, that's how I'm going to go, because it's who he is, and I believe that now more than ever, into the camera, And so first out of the gate is, there's all of this amazing footage and photography and this story of Paul Rubens' life, which I did not know at all. And it turns out that was on purpose. Like, I realized that watching this, it's like, oh, he doesn't want us to know anything about who he really is. So all of that's great. The footage is great. I was, by the way, like, they talk about the craze when the movie came out. I was the top of that class of kids. Like, I was 100% down with Pee-wee.
I think people younger than us may not realize how big of a deal Pee Wee Herman, the character, was to Gen X
pinnacle
kids.
Of pop culture in 1986. I mean, like, right. In mid 1980s, like, Tim Burton's first movie directed film was Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and then Pee Wee's Playhouse started airing in 1986 when we were 9 years old. And I watched it on Saturday mornings. Like, it was so surreal. And I really think that, and it's funny because my wife and I were talking about it because she didn't watch it. And she's like, why were you watching it on Saturday mornings when you were almost 10? And I was like, look at it. I mean, it was subversive. I was like,
I talk about comic books.
Yeah, right. No, but I was like, is it any surprise that, like, I went from this to David Lynch to comic books to, like,
that's the thing is that, it's this huge pop culture phenomenon, and that's happens all the times. But when I look back at this thing, which grabbed everybody and really grabbed me, it was so intelligent and thoughtful and subversive and punk rock. It was punk rock as fuck.
Yep.
Like, down to the guy that they had do art direction on the show.
Oh, Gary Panter, so good.
And the point is, when I watch it now, like, I find myself surprised that it was that big of a deal, but it hit people on many, many levels. But, like, it's one of those things I can look back and be like, well, no wonder I liked this. It was amazing. So last thing I want to get to is that the real treasure in this, of course, is the archive, but the interviews with Pee-wee have these amazing, like, he's kind of telling the truth and he's kind of not, and he's kind of adversarial with the director. And you don't know if it's an act or not. Yeah. It's like he's still pushing you away a little bit, and then you're like, what is happening? Then he'll smirk or he won't. And you're like, well, is he playing a bit? And then something happens at the end where you're like, it wasn't fully a bit. Like, but also he was dying through this process and didn't tell anybody. So as you watch him, he is in the process of being treated for cancer. At a certain point, he knows he's not going to make it. And it was riveting. It was the best kind of documentary like this that I've seen in the longest time. It was reverent towards somebody, because I don't know who comes away from this not liking that guy in some way, but it was also challenging to him.
It was so good. I agree with you. It's just a couple of, housekeeping things. So it was on Max, or it's going to be HBO Max. It's 2 episodes, but they're long episods. Like, I think the first one's like an hour and a half. The second one's like 2 hours.
And I didn't complain about that runtime.
Yeah, no, neither do I. It was great. And just a couple of thoughts I had was, one is that I vaguely knew that Pee-wee as a character emerged from, he did comedy. I didn't realize that he was a member of the Groundlings, and I knew he was friends with Phil Hartman and all this sort of stuff. I didn't realize how embedded and entrenched in LA comedy and Groundlings that he was.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And just how connected he was through all those people. And I never knew the trajectory that it went from, okay, this is going to be a sketch in the Groundlings to a show at the Groundlings to HBO doing a comedy special to then it getting greenlit to a movie to getting Tim Burton involved to then, at the movie premiere, CBS saying you should do a children's show, but then the connection to Paul Rubens saying, oh yeah, he was one of those people who grew up watching TV, watching Howdy Doody, all this sort of stuff, and saying, him not even thinking to do children's television, but then having that idea get presented to him and it clicking and becoming this definitive thing. There's a moment in that time period in the early 80s when he's struggling as a comedian and struggling as doing what he's doing, where he's got a bunch of different characters. I thought it was really funny. He thought he was trying to get on Saturday Night Live like everybody was, right? And had a tryout, didn't go well, and that sort of thing. And he had a bunch of different characters, and he had another character in the Groundlings that did really well. That was a Native American lounge singer. And I thought it was really funny that Paul Rubens in the interview now was, thank God that wasn't the one that I'm known for.
Yeah.
You know, like
it showed him on the Gong Show.
It didn't age well. Yeah, like he was a regular on the Gong Show.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but he consciously made a decision as Pee-wee as a character was getting successful that he's like, I'm just going to be Pee-wee all the time. And
it's kind of like Andy Kaufman.
It'd be very Andy Kaufman, very subversive, very performance art, and it led to success. But then you watch him get frustrated because the movie's a huge hit and no one knows who Paul Rubens is. He got no credit for it. Everyone loved Pee-wee, but he had a writing credit, but nobody knew who he was. And so to see him struggle with that and to hear him in his own words talk about that struggle was amazing. So then they go on CBS and do a children's show, and he brings in guests, and it's, you know, not only does he hire Lawrence Fishburne as a regular, and they have Jimmy Smits, and of course Phil Hartman comes on, but they had like Grace Jones on, like which is just like amazing, like all these people, and that I didn't even realize as a kid, as a 9-year-old I'm watching. The best thing coming out of this is that after my wife and I watched Pee-wee as himself, I've got 2 kids that are 6 and it's summer vacation, and I was like, hey, kids, check this out. I put on Pee-wee's Playhouse. All 5 seasons of Pee-wee's Playhouse are on HBO Max. They are addicted. They're about halfway through season 1. I said the word of the day today. The word of the day was time, and they started screaming, right? like it is. And the thing is, like, I'm cool with it. I think it's a good children's show, and I'm glad they're watching it, you know, and they're into it, and they're thinking about creativity. Like my son was running around yelling, "Connect the dots, la la la," and like it's great. So I'm happy.
I hadn't heard that TV show theme song in 38 years.
Mark Mothersbaugh.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
But the point was, it goes on, and I was like, I know every syllable of this still, without dropping a beat. It was.
I don't know if I watched all 5 seasons, because by the time it ended, I was.
Me neither.
Yeah, but the first 2 or 3 years, I always watched.
Didn't it air like on MTV at some point? Because CBS and
I don't know.
I feel like it aired somewhere where teenagers were watching.
I watched the original run.
Yeah, so. I watched the original run, and then they stopped it because after his problem in Florida. Which the documentary deals with all of his problems, and say what you will about that stuff. I think, like the first problem, wrong place, wrong time, made worse by his celebrity. The second problem, I think, was completely a witch hunt, and was completely, it was just all bullshit. Yeah. And really, and you see the effect it had on him in this documentary, and it's really kind of tragic.
Who among us?
Connor, did you realize that he was? He was closeted, but not closeted, or whatever. But that was interesting. Had a public girlfriend relationship, with Debbie Mazar. Debbie Mazar, all through the 90s.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, I totally didn't realize that.
I have 2 bits, and then we do got to. Okay, one, and it needs to just be said, is that Pee-wee's Big Adventure is an excellent film.
It's so good. I'm waiting to show my kids. I'm having them watch Playhouse, and then we're gonna watch Big Adventure later this summer.
It's just an excellent film.
I still think when he's pulling the chain out of the bicycle and you see the chain coming from the bottom, I love it. Yeah.
It's got to be on purpose. There's no way.
Yeah, totally.
And then 2, and this is the dumbest thing in it, is they were watching it, and Lindsay looks at Miss Yvonne and goes, "Is that Charlie Kelly's mother?" And I had my mind blown.
Yep.
I was just like, wow.
I'm fairly certain Gordon the Intern dressed up like Pee-wee's Halloween a couple of times.
Yes,
I think he did.
If I was shaped like him, I would have.
Yeah. So,
let's move on then to another one.
Yeah, so like Connor, I went to a couple of movies so far this summer. Saw The Materialists. I saw what else? Things like that. But I went to I believe we made a pact amongst the 3 of us to all go see the 41st anniversry screening of This Is Spinal Tap.
I was going to go. This Is Spinal Tap, and then the only tickets available were the front row. And I was like, I don't want to do that. But it did so well. They're adding 3 more days. So I'm going to try to go for.
So I did go to see This Is Spinal Tap in the theater, and be real quick about it. Great running time.
I literally put the slide up in the first episode. 122.
82 minutes. Bravo.
Really feature length.
Feels great. And it was funny because as I was watching it, I was getting to a point. I'm like, when is it going to start wrapping up? And then the next scene, I was like, oh, it's wrapping up. Great. Okay, cool. This movie is perfect. It just works so well. I mean, I still see. I honestly, I was trying to think when and if I ever saw it in a theater, and I don't think I ever had seen it.
Oh yeah,
we were too young when it came
out. But at college or whatever, I don't know if there was a screening or whatever. But I couldn't remember having.
I would have gone if there was.
Yeah, I wish the mix. I wish the music was a little louder in the mix, to be honest. And that might have been the theater I was in, or however it was. But regardless, it was great. There were jokes that I never noticed before that I picked up on in the theater's experience. There's one joke, which I'm not going to say on our show because it's actually really offensive, but I was like, it was very funny. An Ian Faith line that I had never caught before. That was hysterical. Ian Faith, the manager. But yeah, all in all, it was great. And then at the end of it, Marty DiBergi comes on after the credits today. Marty DiBergi, the director, and presented a sneak preview scene of This Is Spinal Tap 2. I forget what the subtitle is. The end continues or whatever. Yeah, I'm not. They're old.
I don't want to see it.
They look really old.
I don't want to see it.
I mean, but if they play that right, that
said, the scene was funny. I laughed, but it was
really funny.
It was shocking to see them on the screen.
You just watched them 40 years ago.
Yeah,
I mean, Christopher Guest is almost 80 years old.
That's the thing is that and I was talking to my wife about it. I'm like, because I remember in high school when they put out an album, they put out Break Like the Wind in like 93 or 94, and that was like 10 years after the movie came out, 10 plus years. That was the right time to do it because they still had the look, and then maybe even 2002 and 20 years, but 40 is hard. 40
Think
is
about it this way. Harry Shearer's 81, Michael McKean and Christopher Guest are 77. That's not any older than the Rolling Stones who are out there playing.
I just saw a photo.
Paul
I sent it to Connor.
Or Ringo Starr, who's out there touring.
There's a photo of Rick Springfield out there playing without his shirt on. He's 77 years old, and he looks amazing. Like,
these guys do not look amazing.
I know, but so.
If you're curious, it does make sense for them to be out there still playing.
If you're curious, the scene that they showed at the end of the movie has been pirated and is floating online. You can probably find it if you want to see it. I'm going to do the Connor mode here. I'm shutting down. I'm not doing anything. I will go see it. I am really afraid though that it's going to become kind of like what they did with the Muppets now, where it's going to be like celebrity cameo parade and
try to be. The first one is.
No, but it's not. It's not. Because
those people all become celebrities?
No, right. Because the first one has people that we know, like Billy Crystal playing a mime waiter. He's not being Billy Crystal. My fear is that it's going to be like Spinal Tap talking to Elton John and Spinal Tap talking to Beyonce and like whatever they're going to try to thrust them into pop culture. Whereas like in this movie, they exist in a world where they don't really interact with any other quote unquote celebrities, right? Like, and my fear is that they're going to try to make them relevant in today's pop culture, and that's going to be a mistake.
I just don't want a Metallica Black Album joke,
right?
I don't want
and if Lars Ulrich pops up in this movie, which he'd be like, yeah, I'd love to be in it. It's going to ruin it. But
wow, that was the perfect Lars Ulrich.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, but Spinal Tap is great. If you can go see it in the re-releases, definitely go see it. It's a perfect.
I mean, you got to give them credit for the fact that like we're talking about at least Christopher Guest is one of the finest comedy minds of our time, and he wouldn't make it shitty. Now he's not necessarily in charge of it. Rob Reiner, more of a people pleaser.
They're all writing it. All three of them.
I get it. Yeah,
go write it. Right. Yeah. So
there's enough to trust them, is what I'm saying.
Christopher Guest doing the end credits bit with what job would you do if you were in a Spinal Tap when he's pretending to work at a haberdashery?
I think of this all the time. Like it's a regular part of my inner monologue.
No, we don't have that. What color?
Well, we do.
And it's like, well, so would you do that job? Well, I don't know. What are the hours like? It just looks so perfect.
And everything he does is just 1,000% deadpan.
Nigel is the best.
Yeah,
Nigel is so good. Anyway,
all right. So
I want this. Look, it's this. Okay, and then you
can't do anything with it. All right. Anyway, let's move on. All right, let's bring on our guest.
Let's take a quick break first. Then we'll bring our guest on and talk about the movie Rad for this. You laugh like the guy in the cartoon. All right.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to blow out the mic.
Oh, wait. All right, we're back. It's time for Old Minute Old Movies, our semi-annual segment. We didn't do it last year.
No.
We skipped it.
There you go. We should do this year. We should
got married that long ago. Yeah, we definitely deserve another one, and I would like to pick one of them.
Ron and Josh and I get to pick this time. So
I don't think I picked any of them.
Let's bring on our special guest to the show. The other person who's excited for Rad, it's Gordon the Intern. Gordon, how are you?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Gordon.
So Gordon and Ron strong-armed Josh and I talking about Rad for Old Men and Old Movies. Why don't you? I mean, you guys take it. You guys.
All right.
This is your thing.
Well, Gordon,
hold on. A little more. Gordon is a good friend of ours from
Yes.
college. If you haven't been around the show forever, you might not remember. He was very involved with sort of the early portions of the show, which is why he's Gordon the Intern.
Gordon is our intern. He's our eternal intern who's been around.
He's yet to be promoted or paid.
Still waiting.
He only gets promoted when one of us dies. We've talked about this.
No, I mean, it's in his employment contract. He
Yeah.
will always be the intern, unfortunately.
Until one of us goes.
I'm sorry.
Carol has actually said there are some labor problems with this arrangement, but I hung up on her.
So Gordon went to college with us. Gordon was one of our first writers on iFanboy. Appeared in many of our shows, many of our podcasts throughout the years.
He also pioneered our old San Diego video segment. What's this line for? Right, Gordon?
That's true.
Yeah.
That was mine.
That was yours too. Josh. You
I
were
spent
there.
a lot of time with Booth Babes also.
That's
Yes,
what he
yeah,
did.
the booth babes. Yeah. So.
All right, so you guys take it away.
All right. Well, so anyway, Gordon, how you been? How's your summer going?
It's I'm lounging a lot.
That's good.
Summer break. What can I say?
Have you seen any good movies lately?
I saw Rad.
There you go. Perfect. Just in time, because in fact we are talking about Rad.
Wow. What are the chances?
So we're talking about the movie Rad, which released in 1986. Directed by Hal Needham, written by Jeffrey Edwards and Sam Bernard. And for those who aren't familiar with this, like I mentioned at the top of the show, American classic. This was a staple of my childhood, Gordon, of your childhood as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
A formative movie. So this wonderful, wonderful movie. We're going to take you through a little journey here. I'm going to give you a little background on the film, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of what our all kind of introduction to the film was. Then we'll talk about the movie itself and then its legacy. But so Rad was actually the brainchild of the writer Sam Bernard, who came up with the idea after he saw some kids in California on BMX bicycles and had the idea to do Rocky with BMX bikes. That was the log line. Rocky
Which is interesting because it's more like Karate Kid with BMX.
Well, that's the thing, because then started developing it, and then at the same time, Karate Kid came out and further bolstered the idea, and that became kind of the big template in the idea.
Yeah.
So he teamed up with Robert Levy, who was the producer, and they started developing it, and they actually took it around town, and they pitched it to Jack Schwartzman and Talia Shire, married couple. You might be familiar with Talia Shire from her work in a little movie called Rocky, or also The Godfather, or her work with Jack Schwartzman in siring Jason Schwartzman, an actor, a contemporary actor now. But they had a production company and they were making movies. And in fact, they were making movies and they were looking to make movies aimed directly at kids. And so Sam Bernard and Robert Levy pitched it to them and they said, it's Rocky on bikes. And they said, great, let's do it. And so they pulled in Jeffrey Edwards to work with Sam Bernard as the on the script. Connor, do you know who Jeffrey Edwards is? You looked at Wikipedia, I'm guessing, so you know who he is.
I don't know. No, I don't know who he is.
Jeffrey Edwards is the son of Blake Edwards,
Oh,
the creator of the Pink Panther series.
yeah, I didn't know that.
So yeah, who knew about that? So
They
they
make my mark, Dad. You'll see. You'll all see.
So they wrote the script, and to direct it, they tapped one Mr. Hal Needham,
Legendary stuntman.
legendary stuntman. At one point, the highest paid stuntman in the business. Legendary stuntman, but he also became a legendary director, responsible for a couple of films in the 70s, a couple of hits known as Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run 2. So all those great movies that all had tons of stunt work. And they thought that, this movie's going to have a lot of stunts with the bikes. We should get a guy who can handle stunts. Hal Needham at first said no. But then they pointed out that, hey, you're also into motorcycles. You've done cars. You're also into motorcycles. Bikes are kind of like motorcycles. And then they actually got some BMXers to bike for Hal Needham, and he saw the parallel between motorcycles and saw what could be done with the stunts, and that challenge. He's like, okay, yeah, I'll do the movie. So he came on board to direct the movie. So with that, they've got their director. They go to cast the movie. The lead of the film is a young high school kid named Crew Jones, played by Bill Allen. They cast him by seeing him on TV on a police like St. Elsewhere or something, and they said he's got a good look, and so that's how he got cast. The love interest is Lori Loughlin, who we all know went on to do Full House, and
this is the first convicted felon that we talked within the movie we've talked about.
Yep. Additionally,
is it?
Probably not.
the villain, somewhat villain, or the rival BMX biker,
Johnny. No, sorry.
They cast Bart Connor, who was playing Bart Taylor. Real creative. Bart Connor was a 1984 American gold medal gymnast.
Yeah. American Nadia Comaneci.
Yeah. So there you go.
Currently, still.
And then they also cast a pair of twins, Chad and Carrie Hayes,
comedian,
to play Rod and Rex Reynolds.
You mean Tomax and Zaymot?
Yeah, exactly. And then to further round out the real villain of the story, though, is Jack Weston, who you may recognize from Dirty Dancing, who plays Duke Best, who is the president of the organization of competitive BMX biking, as well as the president of Mongoose Bikes. Which we'll get to that in a second. Put a pin in that moment for a second.
I do want to mention, real quick. As I watched the movie, I learned something about my wife that I never knew before.
Which was
she goes, "Oh, that's the guy from Dirty Dancing. Do you know that?" And I went, "No." And she said, "So I went to summer camp one time, and I made friends with this girl, and then I went to hang out with her in New York City, and it turned out that her mom was dating Jack Weston, and she's like, and he drove us to the mall."
Wow.
And was with him all day. I was like, really? And it was after this. So I was like, so he's old? He was really old?
Yeah.
He's like, yep. And I was like, how do I not know that? That's
fascinating.
That's a great story.
Jack Weston is a great staple of 70s TV and film and stuff like that. Dirty Dancing was really his pinnacle as the head of Kellerman's. They also cast Ray Walston as Burton Timmer.
Okay, good. I was going to make sure you brought him up because,
of course, yeah. So Burton Timmer
from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Exactly.
Mr. Hand.
Yeah, Mr.
Doing
Hand.
a thing with his hand.
And My Favorite Martian, that sitcom.
It's also like the two movies that most heavily featured Vans shoes featured Ray Walston. So think about that.
I do want to say that last night when Diane was watching this with me, she pointed out while they were in the clothing store that they were selling Spicolis, like the checkerboard Vans, like you could see him back in the background. And I was like, oh, it's funny because Mr. Hand is also in this.
Well, I was like, they clearly cast Mr. Hand because they wanted to pull some rep. Like, I think they wanted to pull some coolness rep from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. But turns out Ray Walston was a friend of Hal Needham, and he was just like, hey, come do this movie. And he's like, okay. So apparently that's how it happened. And then they also cast Talia Shire in the film to play Crew's mother. She got in on the action as well.
And her contract specifies that she spend as little time interacting with her on-screen son as possible.
She's in 4 scenes?
She's hardly in the movie.
She's hardly in the film. Yeah.
It's the scene.
She's talking to other people about the kid.
Put me down.
So that kind of then also in the cast, Connor, I don't know if you have for our video viewers, I don't know if you have a slide for him, but the cop is played by H.B. Haggerty.
That's the Iron Sheik.
No, it's not the Iron Sheik actually, but he was a football player turned wrestler.
He was awesome.
He was great. He was
one
awesome.
of my favorite parts of the movie.
But and then additionally, they used real BMX bike riders both for the stunts as well as in the movie, just all throughout the movie. The other bike riders in the race and things like that are all real bike riders.
That wasn't Lori Loughlin?
Interesting kind of behind the scenes fact. Eddie Fiola was the main stunt biker for Bill Allen, who played Crew Jones. And, sometimes they align, they want the stars to align and they make adjustments, stuff like that. They actually had Bill Allen dye his hair the same color as Eddie Fiola so that they would line up the stunt person to the actor. They didn't make the stunt person dye his hair to match Bill Allen. They made Bill Allen dye his hair to match the stunt person.
You're getting your first lead in a feature film, and then they do that to you. Yeah. Wait,
it tells you where the priority is in the production,
from the
right?
director, sure.
Exactly. But it all culminates into the story, which, by the way, there's a great documentary that just came out this year where I got a lot of these facts from, called The Rad Documentary. You can get this. And Bill Allen says, we pretty much shot the script exactly as it was written. And Hal Needham being a stunt man himself pretty much shot the story around the stunts. So they filmed the stunts and then they built the story around that, which is very interesting. But the story basically boils down to the fact that small town, we never find out where the town is.
Yes, we do. We do.
Do they mention it?
It's hard. If you look in this magazine, Cochrane, Oregon.
It's Cochrane. Yeah. But it's actually in Canada.
Well, it's
shot
Canada.
in Canada.
But they say USA 3 times or 2 times in the film. So
but they clearly use local extras.
Yes.
And this was an ugly group of people.
Yeah. So in a town in Oregon, Crew Jones and his friends all are BMX bike riders. For some reason, the head of Mongoose and the competitive organization of BMX bike riders decide, which honestly is pretty in 1980 in the 80s is prescient, like ahead of the X Games and all stuff like that. They decide to have a major competition of BMX bike riders, and they're going to come to this small town and they're going to build this one of a kind track, and they've named it Hell Track. And this competition is going to happen in this town, and it's going to promote BMX bike riding. And it's this great Chamber of Commerce deal that Mr. Hand does with Jack Weston. And it's this great boon for the town and all this sort of stuff, even though the town appears to have maybe 60 people living in it, as far as you can tell. Cochrane. Yes, there's the banner. And basically the townspeople at a meeting say, well, will our local youth be allowed to compete? And so as a concession to the town, the head of Mongoose says, well, yes, we'll have a qualifier. And so Crew Jones and his friends all compete. And basically the whole schism of the movie is that the final race, Hell Track race, is on the same day as the SATs. And Crew needs to decide whether it's more important to take the SATs like his mom wants him to, or to race in the big race. And that thus is rad.
And then Lori Loughlin cleverly says you could take those later, thus poking a hole in the entire conflict.
I do have to just one quick correction. The SAT is the same day as qualifying. Actually.
Oh, right, it's qualifying. Yeah. Very
but then he does. Spoiler alert: he does qualify. So
and he wins $10,000 for qualifying, which is
pretty good.
It's like $30,000 today, which is nothing.
I have a question, because you just went through the whole thing. And I watched the whole movie. I wasn't doing anything else while I was doing it. And at a certain point, I went, wait, what did Ray Walston do with that guy? And why is he mad at him now?
Well, he made the deal. So Ray Walston
made the deal, but like at the beginning, it was very like secretive. And I was like, wait, so what's he getting out of this? And then I realized I was like, I have no idea. And it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So before we get more into more movie details, what is your guy, and Gordon, I want to start with you. What was the first time you ever saw Rad or heard of Rad? How did you become aware of it?
So I do have to say, I grew up racing BMX bikes. I was never a skateboarder. I couldn't do that. So when I remember watching Rad, but I was already riding bikes by that time in my life. I will tell you, when I was in high school, I worked as a bike mechanic at a bike shop, and that's when like we would just put Rad on like back in the shop while we were working on bikes and just watch it all day long. And so that's when I locked on to it.
And I think that like at least you and I are probably similar to this, because like I liked these action sports when I was a kid, and the thing is that the reason I knew about it and the reason I was so excited about it is there was nowhere to see this. We had only ever seen this in magazines or, Gordon, in real life. But like where I was, I was really interested in it. And so, just like Thrashing and Gleaming the Cube or whatever, it was a chance to see these things move, and that was the appeal, still is. But I mean, I'm sure you kind of feel like that because it didn't exist anywhere else. Like, wow, people were wearing Vans.
Well, this was a whole genre in the 80s and early 90s of biking or skateboarding or inline skating movies in which the hero
that was later.
No, I mean, inline skating was later, but there's a whole genre of this type of movie,
like extreme sports, kind of, yeah.
Right, but these were the early ones though, because they didn't exist anywhere.
Yeah, this was early, and I feel like you didn't get many BMX in this way, at least. I mean, Gordon, you probably know more, if any, than I did. I feel like you got more skateboarding and stuff like that than BMX.
I mean, if you ask, like, I can think of Breaking Away, nothing to do with BMX, but that's a bike movie, right? And then, like, I'm struggling to grasp other bike movies.
Right? Yeah, there was, but and then at the same time, like, because skateboarding, at least we had the direct videos, so we had all those
like Big Brother videos, and stuff like that.
No, the Bones Brigade videos, like really just those sort of first Powell videos. I don't think there was an equivalent for bikes,
right?
Until MTV would show it, or before the X Games, but still sort of that's when it kicked in. But it was like the way to go see that thing, which just existed as a still image. What's funny though is that you were like, you did bikes, and the whole time I'm like, freestyle flatland biking has nothing to do with a BMX track. And why are they on a woods track in the woods for? None of this makes sense.
Well, because the qualifying race, you get the sense that they didn't plan to do, right? Yeah. And also the Hell Track race, the Hell Track track makes no sense from a BMX standpoint either, right? Like there's so it's too funny.
At one point during the qualifying, I went, are they just running the footage again?
Yes, and the answer is yes. The answer
What's interesting though,
I thought there was an error.
If you watch the documentary, they do talk about some of the qualifying stuff and like some of the severe accidents and things that happened in that. And I was like, this, of course I'm going to run the footage again, because people are breaking collarbones, breaking legs on that.
The Hell Track was so intense they couldn't actually race it. They could only shoot.
Yeah, they took 2 weeks. 2 weeks to do it.
And they couldn't do a full lap on it. They'd have to do it in segments.
Also, my favorite thing about the qualifier, my favorite thing in general was the lengths that they went to cover up the fact that the actors weren't on the bikes. So for the qualifier, Crew is wearing like a hockey mask helmet that is completely covering his face, because you can tell that it's not the stunt driver. But he's also, and Gordon, I watched this. So I rented this movie in 87, maybe like when I was 10, and became completely addicted. I thought Bill Allen was like the pinnacle of cool. Crew Jones was like the template for cool. I made my dad buy me a BMX bike. I didn't stick with it, clearly, Gordon, as we know, but like, I just thought it was so awesome and so cool. But it always, I even back then thought it was fascinating that he was racing that race in jeans. Right. I was like, that's kind of constricting, isn't it? Like, so
I'm sure, Gordon, you doing that in Indiana, you've seen that.
Oh yeah. No, that's
not unusual.
Not everyone gets the fancy uniform or whatever.
He did have those cool two-tone pants from the dance he could have raced in.
Oh god, yeah. The dancing's a whole other thing. So, Connor, when did you become aware of Rad, or did you?
Well, I mean, I've always been aware of Rad. I think the first time I saw it was about 36 hours ago.
You never saw it
40 hours ago. Yeah.
No.
This isn't his.
Look at what we're doing. We're enriching your life.
This is some suburban nonsense. This is not city
stuff.
He's
not in action sports. He's not gonna. We were bored out there with nothing to do.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
It's a Southern California.
Yeah,
that's a huge thing. Like, I was really attracted to all of the Southern California stuff. So, like, I loved skateboard stuff. Like, literally, like, seeing that people had vans, I was like, I want to know where to get those, and I couldn't find them for years.
Yeah,
but yeah,
Can I just say something real quick about the whole intro sequence?
Which
to
one?
me, it's reminiscent of Top Gun. Like, like just the music playing and sort of people doing their thing. Like, obviously not getting planes ready, but like it's just the action happening. Is that I'm trying to think of other 80s movies that fall into that same.
Well, I thought it was interesting that
most of them,
the opening and the closing feature nothing to do with the film. They're just they're just dudes on BMX bikes doing tricks.
Apparently, and they talk about it in the documentary that apparently they had a whole that all that stuff was shot in California.
Oh yeah, you could tell it was by the beach
with the BMXers, and they had a plan to shoot like a day of them doing tricks and doing stuff like that. But the weather, because it's all foggy and misty and that and stuff like that, and the weather wasn't cooperating, and the bikers that they hired were just bored and were just starting to do that stuff, and they're just like, "Hey, film them," and so they just started filming that, and they're like, "There's our opening," like that. They just went with it. It was a kind of a spontaneous kind of thing.
That mullet dude is very, very talented.
Yeah. I'm gonna share this is my overall take on the movie, because I think this all slides.
Well, hold on. Did you see it as a kid? You were the last one to answer.
Yeah, but I kind of stepped on Gordon when he was doing it. So yeah, I saw it as a kid. I was instantly attracted to a movie that had this kind of thing in it, because this is the stuff that I wanted to see. I don't think I've seen it a lot since then. It sort of exists in my mind. When I met these guys, they were like super into it.
Well, we'll talk about the legacy in a bit.
Right. No, either way, but like I don't know it all that well. I barely remembered it. But the thing is that all of the bike stuff is real. and it's shot really well, and it is exactly what I wanted to see. It's real people doing tricks. There's not a lot of there's a couple of places where they're doing trickery, but mostly it's just real people riding real bikes who are real good at it. And that's what I showed up for. The rest of the movie is terrible, but like
I object to that.
But
it's a terrible movie.
No, it's not. It's fantastic.
It's formulaic in a million ways. And the fact is, if the biking in it was done in the way where somebody had said these kids like bikes and just had some people go do it, and it was just for show, like in I'm sure there's a skateboard. Thrashing was kind of like that, but they had real skaters in it too. But the fact is that we wanted to go we wanted to go see it because it had the bike stuff, and the bike stuff delivered. So the rest of it
Needham is really good at that.
So I think it's an equation. It's two things in that equation. Connor, to your point, Hal Needham, best in the business with stunts and all stuff like that, and whoever made the decision, and Gordon, you could probably back me up here, to hire the real people to do it, the real bikers. All of those people on bikes were I mean, I don't know, pros or at that point in time in 1985 or 86 when they're shooting it, were as pro as you could get, but those were all the legit BMX guys that could do it. And so it was authentic, right? Hollywood Mike Morona, right?
Mike Miranda, Hollywood Mike Miranda. I'm still a fan.
But they introduced so many people.
Mike Morona's
I was like, are they going to keep going? Is this a bit?
They had to get all 20 racers there.
Well, they only introduced 19 though.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, the real question is,
I want to know what he has to say about that.
Well, I mean,
Bart,
no, not Bart. Bill Allen is not a good actor, and so why not just have one of the main guys be the star? Because he wasn't.
I thought Bill Allen was great. I don't know why he didn't go on to a better career. I thought he was fantastic.
Because he looks like
and admittedly,
a 42-year-old man of Al Pacino and Godfather.
We're talking about 10-year-old Ron, 10-year-old Ron imprinting hero on this guy. But talk about
actor.
So this movie, and this is why I disagree in that it's not a good in the.
You can love it. There's nothing wrong with loving it.
No, I know, but the thing is, like, it's not Jaws, it's not Godfather, it's not a great movie in that regard. But in terms of the template of a low budget 80s movie, like, it has all the pieces. Like, they lay it out in such an economical way, and that they introduce you to Crew and his friends. They immediately in the opening scene where we see them delivering the papers on their bikes, you know who these kids are.
Way too late in the day.
You're literally describing the formula that makes something formulaic.
Right. So we immediately know who they are, right?
Bad at their jobs.
You get the sense of the town. You get the sense of the arrogance of Bart and Rod and Rex and Mongoose and like this, holier than thou kind of thing. You immediately get the David and Goliath kind of positioning of it. You're not going to tell me that you didn't get into it during the qualifying and during the race scenes and during all
because they were the awesome bike scene.
No, I want to make something clear. It's a 2-star movie and a 5-star experience. Like,
that's a great point.
I had fun watching it. It's a really bad movie.
Yeah,
but it's fun to watch.
Yeah,
the acting is almost uniformly terrible.
But it would.
I think Jack Weston was drunk the entire time.
Yes. If the bike stuff wasn't top notch and real and shot really, no one would ever talk about this movie except in the like, you ever seen this horrible movie? But that saved it because they took that part seriously, which is what I showed up for.
And all of it.
I also want to say that when I was in high school, Lori Loughlin was the hottest thing on two wheels.
She's beautiful.
I was going to say that is a major.
Like, 10-year-old me probably didn't notice as much, but when I really got into it years later, it was like.
Well, there's a reason why she, of all the young actors, is the only one who had any kind of career, because she's a good actor. And she's good in it. And she's good in it. Although I didn't quite understand her role. My wife was like, "Is she a booth babe for Mongoose? Because she could bike, but she wasn't in the tournament. She would never have to bike." She explained it.
She explained it. She said she competes for trophies. She's amateur. She's
number one amateur.
She was just there with the team. She was support.
But she was wearing the Mongoose gear and they're in the race.
Yeah, I think there are other events.
She's driving in the parade.
She was a booth babe, I think.
So
she was a Flatlander.
There's one major thing that there's an elephant in the room that we're not talking about, and that is the
blondes who didn't wear bras at all.
No, the dance scene.
Well, I just want to. There's a thing I remembered. I was like, all right, in the 80s, women came on to you 2 at a time.
Yeah,
that's what movies taught me. Is that usually if there was a blonde lady, she was with another person.
Although,
and it wasn't said, but it was implied.
Oddly, to Ron's point, oddly, where there were always these two blondes during the dance scene, there was only one woman with the twins.
Right.
Well, okay, so that's.
By the way, let's just put air quotes around.
So,
blonde.
Connor, I'm glad that you had this still from the film of the twins dancing with the one woman, because Connor, I also want to give you this fun fact. Do you know where the twins' costume for the dance scene came from?
They came from V.
The miniseries V, which is great. So I'll just say this: so there's a dance. I thought we couldn't figure out what the point of the dance was. It seemed to be in honor of the race. Yeah,
it doesn't matter. But we were watching it, and the dance starts, and my wife goes, "What is happening?" Because there's two segments of the dance. One is this strange threesome between Tomax and Zaymot and the blonde girl, in which they're like riding like snakes on the dance floor, and then it becomes a romantic dance between Crew and
on
Christian
bikes.
Lori
on
Loughlin.
bikes.
Yep, completely improvised apparently. Also, so that's pretty impressive.
And Lori Loughlin framed very tightly. It's supposed to never actually be on a bike.
So to not see that the bike is attached to something below
Right.
it.
That was the only like
Possible.
trick camera stuff with bikes they did in the whole thing.
Because they couldn't.
I know.
fake
Yeah,
her.
well, because the whole, I mean, so
That's not a
the
complaint.
first
No, no.
dance, the first dance scene was just, I think, a taste of the arrogance of Bart Taylor and the twins, and just like
Who
I
are,
think
they
that
were
was
supposed
great.
to
from
be
Long
cool.
Island, Ron.
They are from Bayshore. Yep, they're from Bayshore, Long Island. I caught that. But then because then while that's happening, Crew is outside doing tricks, entertaining a small audience, and Lori Loughlin sees this and she grabs her bike off her truck and she one-ups him and leads him inside, and it becomes kind of this flirty one-up dance, kind of language thing that builds on their relationship.
I thought it was cool. I mean, I thought it was crazy, but then I thought it worked. I mean, if you're gonna do a movie called Rad about BMX bikers, then have them dancing on their, especially after the opening where you can see what they can do with the bikes. I thought it was actually a nice sequence.
Nobody would have done this at the time, but
No.
this movie would have been so much better if like she became like, if she was also involved with the racing, because she was also rad. Like, because she
That's
was.
what I mean. I
like,
was surprised she wasn't in the race. That's all.
Well,
right. It would have been.
Let's keep in mind that the movie runtime is 94 minutes, a tight 94 minutes. And so
I'm willing to forgo plot, script,
exactly.
acting.
Like, we could have given Lori Loughlin a plot, but then that would have added more time to the movie, which I think we all agree we don't want.
Could have punched up the script, but it might have added 40 seconds.
The
so
thing
we're not doing
about
that.
the dance is the gateway to what is possibly one of the best aspects of Rad, which is the soundtrack.
The soundtrack is so good. And as we learned in the documentary, those of us that have seen it, the song that the twins danced to was the most expensive song in the whole movie.
Because, Josh, it is the song Music That You Can Dance To by Sparks.
Ah,
And the legendary Sparks that we've talked about on this podcast after the Sparks documentary by Edgar Wright. Sparks is legendary. The song that Crew and Christian danced to is Send Me an Angel by Real Life.
Which you think would have been more expensive because it was a hit at the time.
It wasn't a hit at the time, I don't think. I think it became a hit later on.
I really enjoyed the moment when it said "Send me an angel" and he did a slow spin.
Yes, it was
Yeah,
good.
the
Yeah.
angel wore.
Did you notice that the Christian's outfit had like sparkles in it? Like they had some.
they
lights
both did.
happening?
I saw the
they both
sequin
did,
on
yeah,
Cruise. I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
But I gotta tell you that if you listen to the soundtrack from Baby Come Back by Jimi Haddix, and John Farnham has a bunch of songs on it between Break the Ice and Thunder in Your Heart.
Thunder in Your Heart.
Oh, it's a very good 1980 soundtrack.
I do have to ask because the sound on mine was really weird, and I checked all my settings, but like, was it that way? Is it mixed that way, or something going on with the version I had? Like the dialogue was super. Everything in it sounded ADR, everything. And then like when they were to Send Me an Angel, like the thwack, which is the only part of the song that matters. Send me an angel, thwack. You could barely hear it.
It might have been your setup.
All right.
Yeah.
I checked all my settings. It's fine for everything else, but Amazon.
So before we move on to how the movie,
it's always bad.
Oh yeah, that might be that. Before we move on to how the movie did and then its legacy, the end race and Hell Track. As a kid, Hell Track was like the coolest thing ever. Just like the idea that this existed, and like I built so many and Gordon, we did this in college too.
Yeah,
we recreated Hell Track out of Hot Wheel tracks and things like that every chance we had. But in the reality, and they talked about this also in the documentary, the beginning of Hell Track is a 21-foot high wall that the bikers had to go down. All of the BMX bikers saw that and started laughing, and they're like, "Fuck no, we don't do that."
Real bike thing here.
Yeah.
A lot of the biking they do in this, like I ride mountain bikes. I would do a lot of this on a mountain bike. I would never do this on a 20-inch wheel. Like the wheels were like they look like they were falling at every possible second.
Well, that's the thing. So Gordon.
Well, I was going to say two things about that. One is how wanted them to wreck as spectacularly as they could, as much as they could. So like Hollywood Mike Miranda talks about it in the documentary, but just like going over the wall, doing all kinds of stuff to make sure that it looked awesome on film. But just I wanted to comment on the picture that is up there. At the time, no one was doing backflips. There was one dude that was he like a drywaller or something? Like he wasn't even a rider. All he knew how to do was a backflip. So they had to bring this rando guy in for the 3 scenes that had a backflip in it. And he was the only one that could do it.
Like he was a BMXer, but he just knew how to do this one trick and like blew everyone away by doing it. And what
I thought was cool is that like a lot of the bike tricks, you know, they're the basics of stuff you'd see today, the sort of way that the tweaks are. They didn't look super stiff. I was really kind of impressed by the sort of style of it. You know, they made it a lot bigger later, but there was still a lot of the bar spins and cross ups and cans and things like that. They all look like the tricks that you see today. They're just a little less evolved.
I mean, it's mid 80s. Yeah.
But they looked good on their bikes. A lot of times if you watch people like on skateboards in like the early 80s, they look ridiculous, but they look good on their bikes.
You should rent and watch the documentary because there's like a good 15 minutes of the BMXers talking about that, about the evolution of it. And like going back to the Hell Track wall, they're saying that nobody would do it. Nobody had the balls to do it. And they built it and they're like, well, we've got this a big part of it. And there was one kid who was like 14, Gordon, right? There was like,
I can't remember. He was
he just yelled Leroy Jenkins.
One of the BMXers was like 14 years old and he just like kept on. They had ladder points in the wall where they would climb up and then go down and they were progressively going higher. And then finally this like 14 or 15-year-old BMXer got to the top and did it. And then all the other riders, well, hell, if he can do it, we can do it. And then they all started doing it.
That's how it actually works.
But they spent like weeks just trying to master the wall, which is crazy, right? But they all laugh saying this track would be like completely unrideable, like it's not a real track.
Let's talk about the Kicks Bowl with the spoon coming out.
Product placement in 1986.
I was like, this is just Danny. This is like proto Danny McCaskill stuff. I mean, like it was exactly. I mean, there's guys who make careers doing that now. That was Trials. There's all these different versions of riding bikes in this that are just supposed to all be the same.
Right. Yeah.
So Crew ends up winning the race. Spoiler. But I thought it was risky.
Tell me you didn't get excited. You weren't excited.
Well, that's the thing. I thought it was super risky for him to do a trick at the end when he could very easily.
Bart hadn't stopped.
Well, that's the thing.
Loses.
Bart wanted to level the playing field. That's
not how racing works.
Bart wasn't down with what Duke was doing.
Bart was driving straight, and Crew did a spin at the end.
Yeah,
I feel like Bart should have passed him.
Yeah, when Crew does the spin across the finish line, it's a little bit of.
I was like, "Oh, buddy."
Yeah. So,
but that's where it became kind of like Karate Kid, where Bart is ostensibly the villain, but then he comes to respect Crew, and then at the end congratulates him, and that's almost the exact ending of Karate Kid, and I thought that was.
And there's also, I mean, I also said when he told the twins to like take him out, I was like, sweep a leg.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweep a leg.
Yeah. So before we move on to how the movie did, there's one other point I want to make, which is the fact that the entire race is organized by the head of Mongoose, and the Mongoose brand is all over it. Yet they are clearly the villains throughout the entire thing.
I thought about this a lot.
Can you imagine if this movie was made today and they're like, we're going to make a movie of BMX and you are one of the biggest BMX brands and you guys are going to be the villains. Does any company or brand go, yes, sign us up? So, right? Like it would be some imaginary company, right?
You know about, because I went to look it up and I didn't find a lot. But if you know something about how it works,
well,
the best I got was somebody just said like, they didn't sue people a lot back then, and Mongoose didn't really like it. But what are you going to do?
Well, like I talked about F1 earlier. Lewis Hamilton ends up being the guy they race against to win, and he's real. You think they would have had some fake name, but he chose to have his own name and face to be the guy who loses the race. So I don't.
Right. Well, they probably paid him. They probably paid him.
Well, he's a producer in the film, but but he chose to lose, right?
Yeah,
so
I think it's fascinating that they used a real brand and painted them like twirling mustache villains. Like,
it's crazy they didn't just make a fake brand. That is really
like
insane.
Fascinating. I just love it's so fun.
Well, I mean, but again, that also sort of speaks to the fact that, I mean, who knows what the deal was? Like, we want to use your logo, and we're like, cool, and then they didn't look at the script,
especially back then when they weren't
right. And so, but if you're Mongoose, you're a tiny, boutique brand, and you would like the rest of the world. They make great bikes back then before they sort of make crap bikes now. It seemed like a huge opportunity for them. So they've been like,
I mean, talk about exposure and stuff like that. I mean, hell, Gordon did, it didn't affect. I didn't walk out of this going, I hate Mongoose. Like, I still wanted a Mongoose.
Yeah, right. I don't think it actually had a negative impact on.
I bet you their sales went up. I bet you their sales.
Oh, absolutely.
If their sales didn't, they would have.
Well, that gets in. That's a good segue into. I don't know how much of an impact it had on their sales, because maybe it did in the long term in the short term.
Well, the niche market, yes, because every biker knows the boot. So
the movie clocked in at 94 minutes, tight 94 minutes. Bravo, Hal Needham delivering
made $98.
It lost money. Yes,
it came out. It had a budget of $3 million. It came out on March 21st, 1986.
Mostly cocaine expenditure.
It came out on March 21st, 1986. And it earned in its opening weekend $408,000.
I thought you were going to stop after 8.
No. So
$408,000.
So it did better than Mallrats.
I want to share with you the opening weekend. The number one movie that weekend was, Josh, one of your favorites, Police Academy 3: Back in Training.
Oh,
which made $9 million in box office.
Police Academy 4 featured the skateboarders. So
the number two movie was Gung Ho, right? Great Michael Keaton film, right? Yep. Number 3 movie, another classic 80s movie, Pretty in Pink.
Yeah.
Right. Number 4 movie was The Color Purple.
Yeah, Spielberg.
Right? Number 5 movie was the 1986 re-release of the classic animation Sleeping Beauty from Disney.
Wow, it's a powerhouse weekend.
The number 6 movie was Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
Jesus.
Right? Wow. The number 7 movie was Care Bears movie 2, A New Generation.
Okay. The
number 8 movie was Hannah and Her Sisters. The number 9 movie was Just Between Friends.
I vaguely remember that.
The number 10 at the box office wasn't Rad. At $1.3 million was Crossroads. So that was
almost 3 times the gross of Rad.
Number 11 in its 14 week in the box office was Out of Africa. Right, at $1.3 million.
What a time to be alive, where you go 14 movies deep and you're still hitting classics.
This is barely a B movie, though.
We're still going.
Oh, no.
Number 12 was a movie called House, $1.1 million. Number 13, Murphy's Romance.
Oh, yeah. That's James Garner.
Yep. Number 14, Wildcats. Goldie Hawn.
Oh, Goldie Hawn. Great film.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Jesus.
Number 15, making $531,000 in the box office in its opening weekend, GoBots, Battle of the Rock Lords.
Wow.
And then finally, number 16 at the box office, opening weekend, Rad, with $408,000.
It can't have had as many screens.
I think we can safely say that Rad is a cult classic.
Yes.
Not a box office hit.
So
this is a cult classic. Yes.
Now that said, it ended up making a little over $2 million total in box office, coming in $1 million under its budget. So it ended up being the 153rd highest grossing film in the box office in 1986. But that said, it did get a second life in VHS rentals and Laserdisc sales. In fact, I have in my hand right now the VHS copy of Rad that I rented from my local video store.
Did you steal it?
When my local video store went out of business, they had a sale where they sold all the VHS movies that they were renting in the late 90s when they went out of business. And I drove down from college when I heard that they were going out of business. And this was the only movie I bought. This is the exact copy I watched in 1987. And fun fact, my wife worked at that video store in high school, and she likely rented this to me. So this VHS tape has taken a fun journey.
I'd be curious to know what the picture looks like on that tape.
Yeah,
Ron, for $90 on eBay, you can get the Rad 4K Ultra HD release on Blu-ray.
That was my question. That must be worth. I bet that tape's worth something.
Though what's funny is that so a couple of months ago there was the 39th anniversary Fathom Events screening in the movies.
They do it every year, Rad Day.
Yeah, Rad Day. And Gordon and I both went. Gordon, you went in your state. I went in my state. We went the same night. And I went by myself and I was chatting it up with some people in line. And I mentioned that I still had this. And the guy's like, that's worth something. Yeah, sure it is, buddy. It's all dog-eared and everything though. You can't see it anyway. But I did do some, but there has been Blu-ray releases, there have been DVD releases, and there's no public data available about the VHS and Laserdisc releases. But since the 4K restoration and the Blu-ray releases, the public data that I've been able to find is that it's made 1.2 million in DVD sales in the last 5 years. So they've cleared their budget. It just took a long time. So yeah. But I love this movie. Connor, I think you do sum it up. It is a 2-star movie with a 5-star experience. And it is just, and Gordon, the night we saw it after Rad Day, we talked on the phone for half an hour driving home from the theater. We were texting with our other friends who are into it. And here's the thing about Rad though, is that in addition to it being kind of a BMX movie, and in addition to it being like a 80s action sports movie, underlying and part of the reason why I like it, and I think Gordon, I think why you like it, and Josh, I think why you like it is also a very punk rock movie, right? In that you've got an underdog kid who is going up against the man. They change the rules on him. Movie. They twist the rules. They do everything. They throw everything they can at him. At one point, when he qualifies, they tell him, "Oh, you can't go on the race because you're not sponsored." So him and his friends start silkscreening T-shirts and selling the T-shirts to make the money to say, "Oh, look, we're sponsored." Like there's such a DIY ethic to everything Crew Jones and his friends do in this movie that like I'm not like I had that realization driving home from Rad Day, like, oh, no wonder I love this movie, right? Because it connects with so many of the things that I connected with over the years, whether DIY and all this sort of stuff. So it's like it is just another kind of file folder in that thing that made me who I am. So
I had my own realization about half of the movie, and I'm not going to say what it is, Ron, but I went, oh, that's Ron's email.
Yes.
In the same way Josh's email, which I won't say, is based on Jaws.
Yep.
Ron's email is based on Rad.
Yeah. My AOL AIM Messenger screen name was based on Rad too. Like it was, this was,
At some point they said it and I went, oh, okay. Now I understand. This is Ron's Jaws.
Yeah. So now
this is his Jaws. Your email is Jaws. His email is Rad.
It's true. Yeah. So fast forward to 1996 when we're in college, and I meet Gordon for the first time, and Gordon's tooling around on a BMX bike, and we become friends. And I don't even know how like it came up, but I was like, oh, he knows what, like, it was almost like, it's like with comics. It was like a secret language. It's like, oh, you know, Rad, right? And we watched it in college, right? We because I brought the tape with me.
How many times did you watch it in college?
Who knows? I don't even know.
Enough.
But the best was that we took it upon ourselves to go buy sleeveless sweatshirts like Crew and bandanas that we tied on our thigh like Crew. And we literally walked around college for a couple of weeks dressed up like Crew Jones.
All right.
Didn't tell anyone. My girlfriend wasn't amused.
This was the first time I realized when I watched it that just because I rode a lot of bikes since then, that the bandana on the leg had an actual purpose. I was like, oh, it's to keep it out of the chain. But the thing is that he moved it up later, and it was still pretty loose. I was like, I don't know, you got to work on this.
Diane asked me last night. She said, "Did you wear a bandana like that?" I said, "Yes, I did."
Oh yeah, 100%.
So we've been promoting this show for a while. We, in fact, actually ended up bumping it. It was supposed to be last month. We did get one email from someone about it. So I want to.
I love when we go long too, and it's an extended edition of Mediasplode. Everybody,
I love it too, especially when I've got dinner waiting downstairs. Dan C from New Jersey says, "Having visited Rad recently, I have some questions for you about this film. And I've been thinking about this for about 6 weeks because some of us take it seriously when you say you're going to watch something on a certain date."
Sorry, Dan.
Spiciness from Dan. So Dan's got 3 questions here. First, are we supposed to be rooting for Talia Shire? Watching as an adult, I now think she was right about everything. We'll answer one at a time. The answer is no.
No, correct.
She is 100% wrong.
100%
like I said earlier, he can take the SATs whenever and or go to college a year after everyone else. If he's very, very good at something and he's got a chance to prove it, maybe make a career out of it or make money out of it, he should have that chance.
Josh has a counterpoint.
I do have to make the point that at this point in history, there was no money in doing this thing. There was no.
No, but she knew. She knew this.
I get it, but I'm saying like now, right? But now you can become a pro and make a career out of it. At that point in time, that did not exist.
But
not
those guys
were
pros, and they did make a career out of it. Bart was a pro.
I'm telling you, in real life.
I know, but we're talking about the reality of the movie, which is
the reality of the movie. And as Crew says to Talia at one point in the film, he would be throwing away a real opportunity here.
Yeah, he was.
This is her own words against her.
Yep.
Yeah, she's 100% wrong in the movie.
Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I do have to say, like, this didn't exist yet.
She needs to get back in her station wagon and drive away. And
like the most famous people in this kind of subculture thing were like the Bones Brigade, your Tony Hawks and Steve Caballero, and they didn't make any money until much
Hollywood
later.
Mike Miranda.
Yep.
What is the reason
you know those names? Because they were like, do you know any like famous BMXers from the time you were doing it? Like, did you?
I mean, I really knew who Hollywood Mike Miranda was.
Right,
like,
okay.
I was a big fan of his.
What's he doing now?
He owns a bike shop where they play Rad on the loop.
I mean, that's 80% probably what happens.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what he does.
Oh.
So
he talks about it in the documentary.
Question 2: what is the difference between ass sliding and regular sliding, an activity normally done on one's ass? So in the film, Crew Jones takes Lori Loughlin ass sliding, which is to slide down a pipe,
toxic
pipe,
like a logging pipe or something.
A logging pipe into the water.
There's no way that isn't full of those forever chemicals that are killing everybody now.
Yes.
So what's funny about that, Josh, to your point about the scene, the qualifying race, when you're like, I think they're just reusing footage. They only filmed that once. Yet in the movie, they do multiple ass sliding because they had 2 cameras set up and they just showed it from 2 different angles because it was so cold that they couldn't do it again.
Cold. Yeah.
That is like they I guess they just wanted something that the kids did in this town.
Also, every town has its own local vernacular and everything.
Right.
You know, but
I did like how they seeded it earlier in the movie when Luke and the tomboy girlfriend were like, "We're going ass sliding," and like,
question. Why is there a series of abandoned shacks that they can set up in around the town?
I know. They've got these safe houses filled with magazines. But that was the 80s, man. It was a construction site. You just hung out there.
I was obsessed with having some sort of a clubhouse because all movies seem to have them, and I couldn't figure it out.
I will say, Josh, that where I grew up, we had woods all around us, and in those woods, there was like an old abandoned, I guess it was a bomb shelter or something, and that's where we would go. And like there were old penthouses and stuff buried there.
No, absolutely. That's what I told them. I was like, that's where you keep your dirty magazines. But like they were gross in real life. Those places, right? And there, I was like, this is like furnished with walls and a roof.
Well, it did reinforce the idea of, you know, we were basically feral children in the 80s. You went off on your own on your bike and were gone, and things now the police would be called on your parents. It was just like, go ride your bike and do all kinds of really dangerous shit.
I used to ride my bike looking for housing developments being built so I could ride my bike on the wood like Crew did.
Dirt jumps to flat, baby.
Yeah.
So final question from Dan C is, do you think that Lori Loughlin learned about college admissions from this script and is this responsible for her later problems in this area?
Well, I think it's very clear that she learned nothing.
She would have known, like, listen, take the test, then we can study and you can take it again. But she was like, nope, let's just pay them. That was actually the first draft for this, which we know there wasn't a first draft because this was the first draft, is that she was like, why don't you just pay college to get in?
Well, he makes like $300,000. The $100,000 pot is like $300,000 now. Plus
and he gets the Corvette.
And the Corvette plus the $10,000 he made for the qualifying. So he comes away
plus all the money they made from Mr. Hand. He gave them $25,000. He bought
how much money's that guy got laying around?
I know also what I love, which we didn't even mention, by the way, that the whole town is obsessed with bicycles.
Yeah.
Well,
Mr.
again,
Hand
like Karate Kid.
Bicycle, right?
Mr. Hand isn't just riding a bicycle; he's riding a BMX cruiser. He's not even riding like an.
I saw that.
Bike.
I was like BMX cruiser. I saw that, but he also has a box of donuts and 2 coffees in one hand that he's riding with, and I was like, that's impossible. And that brought up.
Also, by the way, he's in his 60s or 70s at this point.
Yeah, no, baller. I mean, like that brought up the point that, and my wife said, this is always your thing, is that I hate when people are holding things on screen that are supposed to be full of something and they're not.
Yeah, I hate
the empty cup thing.
You can always tell people are drinking.
Yeah, I know, and I'm always like, "There's nothing in those cups," and she's like, "Shut up!" And I was like, "I can't have it."
You should talk to my wife. She points it out all the time.
I can't stand it. Is it so hard to put water in a cup?
Just put a beanbag in. Put some weight. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
I did wonder why he was biking the one door length from the coffee shop to the house, to the place, and balancing. He could have walked the bike and had much less chance of dropping it every time.
Yeah. I just think it's fascinating that he rides a BMX, like the Gordon friends that rides a BMX. But I also want to know the cop chasing crew through the log, the log thing. Like, does the cop? Is there no crime in this town? Like, this is a game they play. Like,
just leave the fenced area. They're on a wide open highway. You can absolutely catch them.
But no, he just stops and looks at them.
But that was their game. He wasn't actually chasing them. That was their like daily.
He's chased those kids his whole career and blah blah. Yeah,
he was great.
He was really good.
Which is interesting for that the ethos of the film to have the cop be like the most supportive adult to Cruz Jones. Was like gives him the pep talk.
It's a subversive film. It's very good. I like when he shows up and Cruz like he wants to play a game. Like
he's not a good actor.
Oh, he was great. Bill Allen, I think he's fantastic. I don't know what
he's melting from the top.
I will say I'm gonna make a little confession here. Well, Ron mentioned earlier. I rode a BMX every single day at college. I rode that bike until I finally got rid of it, sadly. But my first wedding, I'm on my second now, but my first wedding, I did invite Bill Allen.
You did?
I did.
Did he respond?
No.
Oh. Well,
I invited Dennis Christopher and Bill Allen.
After this, Bill Allen did an episode of Family Ties. Then he did an episode of China Beach. He was in Born on the 4th of July.
I mean, he worked. I remember looking. He worked.
He worked. I mean, he worked. Nothing ever.
He's a working actor.
Nothing ever really, blew up for him, unfortunately. So he's great.
Anyone else looking up BMX cruisers for sale right now?
But oh man,
any final words on Rad before we end this one?
This movie will go down. So I have the VHS. I have the vinyl of the album of the album. Gordon, you have it too. Hang on, you have a frame behind you. I have a original one sheet of the poster, which I am in the process of getting framed at my vintage movie poster framer person. So I'm getting that done. I'm wearing my Rad Racing t-shirt that I got made.
This is your Jaws. Josh, this is his Jaws. We have to accept it.
Except they make much less toys and stuff.
You have enough.
Yeah, probably I do. Yeah, I love it.
You could buy a BMX racer thing and just paint him to look like.
Yeah, you could probably hire any of the guys from that to hang out with you for a while. They need the work.
They do events, and I have thought about going.
Well, until you do, rest
Rad Fest or something like that. Gordon, we got to do that.
I would go to a Rad Fest.
Yeah, we should do that. Maybe for the 40th next year. We'll see what they're doing. I don't know. Watch the documentary though. Rent the documentary. It's like $5 on Amazon. It's worth watching. It's like an hour. It was all right. It wasn't great, but it was fine.
Seriously, I'm looking at buying a BMX cruiser.
Yeah.
This is weird. I don't want one. I have nowhere to ride it. But I'm like, well, it's not too
Josh,
bad.
I would recommend you watch the documentary purely for all the BMX bikers that are in it, for all the behind the scenes stuff about that, because I think you would find that interesting. So.
And if you care, I just love it. Obviously I make films now, but like, I just love anything about filmmaking because it, all the hurdles they had to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, Luke was a local kid who just got cast.
Yeah. And it poured raining on Hell Track the day before this was the shoot. It was all muddy. They brought in helicopters to dry it. Like Hal Needham got helicopters to come and dry the mud. Like, that's crazy.
Like with the rotor wind?
Yes. Yeah.
Downdraft.
It's crazy. Anyway, all right. So go.
Then 3 of those crashed. There were 18 deaths.
You can stream Rad. It's streaming on all the major platforms. You can rent it. You can buy it if you want. There are Blu-rays that are out there. They just had an anniversary edition that has the documentary in it. There's a steelbook version, Josh. I know you love the steelbook versions. You can get that if you like. But it's fun. So Gordon, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on board. Talking about one of our favorite movies. No joke. This is like there are many things that connect Gordon and I together in life, and this is like Gordon. This is like maybe 30% of our relationship, right? Rad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What percent is Greece?
Greece is like 10, 15.
All right. Well, thanks for watching Mediasplode for the month of July. As always, you can go to iFanboy.com and find all of our podcasts there, all of our comic book related shows. We have a review of Superman coming up next week, and we'll be reviewing Fantastic Four later in the month, and you can find all that stuff there. Gordon, tell the people about where they can find your movies and where those things.
My stuff is, if you go to PegasusPictures.com, which is Pegasus like a flying pig, not a flying horse. Everything that is released should have a link there, and then we have a bunch of stuff that is soon to be released. So,
and Ron,
I'm on social media at RonXO around the world, and you can listen to my other podcast called Android Faithful at AndroidFaithful.com, where we're talking about smartphones and of the Android variety, but we talk about iPhones also and fun stuff.
You should
like
start seeding and talk about BMX bikes.
I try.
Just occasionally start.
See if you can do like the everyone wants to do it on their podcast, but slowly flip the genre and focus over time so that you're,
suddenly like 3 of the stories about BMX bikes.
Can I note that my wallpaper is the artwork for the Rad DVD release? It's on my phone, so yeah.
I feel like Josh is having a situation here where he's realizing things about Ron he never knew after 20 plus years of friendship. That this runs deeper than he could have possibly imagined.
I think this did surprise you how deep it ran.
Well, the thing about Ron is there's like a lot of things that he's like, oh, this is the best. And so there's like a million little subcultural things that he will tell you are the best thing ever. And it's surprising that this one has roots that seem to go deeper than many of the other ones.
This one goes deep.
He fucking loves Harry Dean Stanton. But on the surface, it doesn't look any different than this. But I don't think you're going to go to Harry Dean Stanton Con, but you're thinking about going to Radfest.
Yeah.
You would go to Harry Dean Stanton Con. You know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
All right. Well, next month we'll be back with something. Until then, I'm Connor.
I'm Ron.
I go last usually, Gordon.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. I'm Josh. You wouldn't know that.
I don't watch this show.
No, me neither.
I'm Gordon the Intern. Thanks.
I'm Josh. I couldn't.